Now it's the time to understand about the project structure that we have already created our web API in the last video by using Visual Studio. And let's understand one by one all the files and folder present in this web API, right? So in this dependencies, here all the SDK and framework and packages are installed over here. And we can see if I click on this package, we can see over here that this is basically used for Swagger. This one is used for Swagger. And if I click on the framework, this is the Microsoft.asp.NET Core.app, and all the required packages are being installed over here in this framework. That is the latest one, ASP.NET Core app, right? And this is the Microsoft.NET Core app, and all the required packages are installed over here. So for this project, all these packages are present over here, right? And let me tell you one more thing. All the files that are specific to .NET Core are basically installed for this application under this .NET Core app. We can see all the system files over here like system.console, system.data, right? And all the files which are specific to ASP.NET Core, they all are installed for this application over here, right? And these are the analyzer for the application. So for the dependencies, if we say all the SDK packages and framework are basically present over here in this location. Now we will talk about for this folder. So let's expand this, and under this we have launch setting.json file. So this file is basically used for running the application in the development environment. And here we can see these are the default settings. That is basically a JSON file, as we can see, that is in the JSON format. And this is the IS setting. By default, Windows authentication is false and anonymous authentication is true, right? And if we want to run the application using IIS Express, then this setting is required. And if you want to run the application using CLI, then this setting is required, right? We will be discussing each and everything in a very detail in the upcoming videos, so don't worry about that. Let's close this launch setting.json file, and now let's go to the controller folder and now click on this CS file. As we know that web API is based on controller based, so web API works on the controller based approach, and this is the basically controller class, and all the controllers of a web API or any application, all controllers resides under this controller folder over here, right? And this is basically inherited from the controller base class, as we can see. And this is basically your route attributes. We will be discussing in a very detail in the upcoming video, so don't worry about that. And this one is your static method, and this one is your logger, which is basically used for the logging the errors and messages in your database, right? And this is basically a constructor of the class of this weather forecast controller class, right? And this is basically your get method, that is of type http get request. And this is basically the main logic, we can see the main logic where we are performing over here. And this is basically uh, called in the web browser. So let's close this. Now let's go to the next file, that is your appsetting.json file. So this is basically your appsetting.json file. We can see that all the application settings related things we can mention over here. If you're coming from the .NET background, you must be knowing that we were having web.config files. So all the application setting related things we used to apply in that web.config file, right? Similarly, in this .NET Core, we are applying all the settings in this app setting.json file, right? And if I click it more, if I expand it more, we can see we are having one more file, app setting.development.json file. So that is basically your environment specific, and we can override according to our need, and we can have multiple environment, we can create a multiple environment JSON file according to our need, and this can be override, right? And now let's go to our program.cs file. This is basically the entry point of your application. We can see that this is the main entry point of your application. And in .NET Core, each application is your by default control application, right? And we can see over here our main method. The control will enter into this from this point, and we have create host builder inside the main method, and the implementation of this method is just given below here. We can see over here, and it is basically configuring your web host default, right? And it is basically used to support all the we can say all the supporting all the applications related to your web API. So we can say that basically it provides all the support that is required for the web application, right? And over here we can see it is calling your startup class, and the startup class is over here. As we can see in the startup class, all the configuration related things are written over here for this application, right? And in the startup class, we can see that we are having these configure services method, and the second one we can see your configure method. And this configure services method, if I expand, we can see that we can add the support of the controllers. Let's suppose in the future if we want to add the support for all the controllers, so we can add it at this place, and this is the place where we can inject all the services. um, we can see that with the help of this figure, we are injecting this service over here, and we can customize in the future, and we can add multiple services over here according to our need, and we can inject multiple services in this configure services method, right? And now going to the next method in the bottom, that is your configure. Here we can see that it is expecting two parameters. One is your application builder, and other is for host environment, right? So basically, this is basically used for environment purpose, and it is used to provide the support for middleware application. In the .NET framework, there was not a support of middleware application, but when we are working with the .NET Core, we do have a support for middleware application. So basically, it is providing the that middleware support for the application. We can see that if your environment is development, then we have added some couple of middleware, and if we scroll it down, these are the your HTTPS redirection, and we have added some more couple of middlewares, that is your routing and authorization, right? And let's coming to the last, that is your endpoint, and this is an endpoint which is used to map the controllers. So don't worry, in the upcoming videos we will be discussing all these things in a very detail. And now let's coming to the last file of this application, that is your weather forecast.cs file. It is normally we can say it is a very simple class having some few properties, as we can see, and it is acting as a model for this application, right? And in last, I would say that there's no any foundation that we have to follow this same structure. According to our need, we can customize it, and we can create our own models. Let's suppose if we want to create a separate model, and inside that model we can add our classes, or Either we can do one more thing. If we want to create our own separate class library, we can do that also. We can create our separate assembly, or we can see class library, and we can add our data access layer over there, and we can apply the logic. So according to our need, we can customize the structure of this web API application in this .NET Core, right?